Hello everyone and welcome back to The Lion's Den. I'm your host, Matt, as always, and I suppose I should start out with a little bit of an apology for not getting this up on a Thursday. I had one job and I failed it, but we're here, finally. Oh gosh. This week has been very slow, so I was very stuck on Wednesday and Thursday. I was start thinking, what the hell am I even going to talk about? Because nothing has happened this week that's of any significance. And I initially thought, oh, they're releasing Pyre and Mithra on Thursday. They're doing the announcement, so I thought maybe I'll wait for that and then record an episode the day after, so that I can at least talk about something. Um, but in the end, I just completely forgot again. I was busy Friday doing work and then going out shopping and sorting all of that stuff and being an actual adult. Oh gosh, being an adult. So just completely slipped my mind. But I suppose this might be a bit of a shorter episode, but we've got some stuff to talk about, not masses. But let's jump into it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that recently for my degree, so for any of those who aren't aware, I am currently doing a physics degree. I'm in my fourth year, at the very end of it, so I'm doing quite high level stuff. And I've been tasked with designing a house. Yes, in a physics degree, I've been asked to design an off-grid house. So the idea is that we have to figure out what the energy requirements of the house are, the heating requirements, the size of it, all of the details and the specifications of the house, and then figure out a way to make it so that it's off-grid. So what kind of power source are we using? How are we going to get water? How are we going to use gas if we want gas? Do we use biomass instead, or solar energy, things like that? Um, and this last week I went through the task of actually designing a layout for the house and the dimensions of it, because we obviously need to know how big this house is, otherwise we can't determine what kind of energy requirements we'll have. And surprisingly enough, it's quite fun to just dream up a theoretical house, to try and visualize it in your mind, think, where are the rooms, how do they all connect, do you want some nice big panoramic windows, or are you gonna have a slightly older style to it? Do you have a garage? Do you have a roof or an attic or a loft space? And then another thing that you have to start considering, especially in our case, is if I make things big and open plan, how does that affect the heating requirements? Because obviously it's a lot easier to heat a small enclosed space than it is to heat in a large open space. So there's always that to consider. But I think I came up with a decent plan. I calculated the heating requirements for it as well, and it seems pretty reasonable. It doesn't seem absurdly high or low. It kind of fits in line with the average here in the UK. So hopefully that means it's all good. I suppose I alluded to it at the start, but let's talk about Pyre and Mithra. So I haven't played any Xenoblade. I didn't know anything about the game. I was just like, it's with what? It's a sword person. Oh lord, it's actually not a sword person, as far as I'm aware. From what Sakurai said in the presents, they are actually just a sword, and they are personalities of a sword. However that works. But either way, they're very fun. I think, personally, I think a good hallmark of a character is how easy are they to pick up and play, for me, personally. Because I think where my level is, if a character is easy to pick up and play and you can just kind of press buttons and be fine, then that's a hallmark of a good character. They might not be a top tier, but they're definitely not terrible, and they're also definitely not overly complicated that you have to sit down and figure them out. And I think that means for casual people, they can see this character go, who's that? Oh, I don't know. I'll play them anyway and be perfectly fine and probably figure out a little bit of fun and some tech with them. Whereas some characters like, let's say Fox, for example, you really have to have some more in-depth knowledge as to how he works, especially things like his weight and his speed of falling, because otherwise they will kill you when you're not paying attention. But yeah, Pyramithra, interesting little duo. I'm glad that the switching mechanic is fast and also that you have the ability to be. It's either invincible or intangible, I'm not entirely sure. But you're able to use it semi as a dodge if you get the right timing for it. I quite like using Mithra because I'm used to faster characters, but Pyro is pretty much your go-to kill option. Obviously, Mithra can kill at the right percentage with the right move, but Pyro is just so easy. You just kind of flail that big fire sword around and people die. It's great. Though obviously she is slower, so that's the balancing. I think it seems quite balanced actually. Pyro is noticeably slower, but obviously has a lot more damage and power, whereas Mithra is very fast and very nimble, but doesn't have the kill power. So I feel like it's a good balance. I'll leave it up to the top players to determine whether they are actually balanced or if they're broken or not. But from my limited experience of them, I think they're a good character, and I think they will work quite nicely. And it'll be very interesting to see the kind of crazy, wacky combos people get up into. People might start out with like Mithra, rack up a bit of a string, and then switch to Pyres to hit some damage, and then do an insane kill. I think it has the potential to be very good. So, have you heard of the 80s? They're calling. They're throwing their Rubik's Cubes out of the 80s at you. I don't know if you ever had this experience, but especially in my school, uh, maybe I want to say like 2015 or 2014, there was this huge fad where everyone just suddenly wanted to get a speed cube and learn how to solve the Rubik's Cube. And none of us were particularly that good. None of us were doing the insane times that people can do these days. I've seen people who can just casually pick up a Rubik's Cube and solve it in 7 seconds. Meanwhile, I take like a minute and a half. But it was a very interesting small tidbit of my history, I suppose, in school. But I still have a cube. I bought a better cube recently because I had a single stickerless one. Don't remember the brand whatsoever. And then watched a bunch of videos of budget cubes and bought a new one that is stickered because I thought I quite like the aesthetic of the stickered ones with the black outline. It's nice actually. It feels better but worse in some regards. It seems to lock up a little easier, but that might be more just my inaccuracy in turning. But it also does feel a lot smoother and it clicks into place quite nicely when you're turning each layer, which is nice. I think it's a fidget toy more than anything. Would like to try and be better at solving it so that I can at least get it maybe under a minute or maybe even under 30 seconds because then that's quite impressive. But the amount of time that you'd have to spend to learn all the different scenarios and then how to actually solve those scenarios is kind of daunting. And I learned how to solve it semi-intuitively, and then the last layer I learned just sort of a brute force algorithm that if you do it multiple times eventually it works, but that's really inefficient and really slow, and that's probably my biggest problem. But I do just like messing with it, flicking it, turning it, and the sound is very satisfying. It feels really nice as well. So I think if you're interested in it, go for it because you can get really cheap cubes. I think the one I got was something like 15 quid, but I know you can get it even cheaper. Just don't buy the official branded ones because apparently they're awful, and from the look of it, they do look awful. Make sure you, if you're interested, go onto YouTube, search any speed cubing channel and like budget cube, and you'll find one that's in a price range that you think is acceptable. That will be probably perfectly fine for whatever you are interested in. But yeah, I don't want to overextend my welcome because by the time I've edited this, it will probably way less than 10 minutes. Um, but thank you for listening if you are. Do remember, if you want, you can like, comment, and subscribe. I have to be a YouTuber now, even though I'm doing a podcast. Anyway, I'll see you all next week. Bye.